whatever you want us to know.
Thank you, Ramo. My name is Chef Tijan Yang, as you already know. Most people call me Tijan. I am originally from Banjul, brought up in 3 different streets, Perseverance, Lancaster, and Gloucester. I attended Albion Primary School. Also went to Wesley Primary and then St. Mary's, and further went to Crab Island School. Attended Crab Island School for 2 years before going to Ghana. I was lucky to be among the 100 Gambians that were taken to Ghana to study by the late I am Gaba Jahumpa. I remember it was just coincidence that I was part of that group, because I learned of it, and that people or youngsters were going to Ghana. And a friend of mine who passed away, unfortunately, went and submitted my name and his. But unfortunately, I was selected and he was not selected. And unfortunately, before I came back, he passed away. As I said, Ghana, we were about 100 youngsters. I think I was around 14 at that time. And there were prominent people who are in key positions at the moment who went to Ghana with me. I can name just a few. Musa Bite was one of them. Tamsir Jallo, the former majority leader and ambassador, was one of them. Suleiman Seka, the former permanent secretary, Minister of Local Government, was one of them. Gorgi Gay, Mr. Gio Gay, who was working in the Ministry of Agriculture, among others. We had a good time in Ghana, and we were young pioneers. My first job in the Gambia when I came back was I worked as a messenger at the Elder Dempster. At that time, Elder Dempster was the only shipping company in the Gambia. I think at that time we had the father of Maimuna Savage, Mr. Savage, as the managing director, and Babukar Sanya, I could remember, Aki Davis, among others. I also worked briefly at the Royal Victoria Hospital as a clerk. I was the one in charge of registration of births and deaths. After that, I also worked at the Ministry of Health. At that time, it was the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. I was the first clerk. At that time, we were only 3 officials who opened the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare at that time. The first minister, I believe, was I am Gaba Jahumpa. Then we had Mr. Adabo. And the permanent secretary at that time was Henry Oliver. I also worked as a doctor's clerk, worked with Dr. Blaine for many years. As a doctor's clerk, a lot of people thought that I was going to be a doctor because of my working relationship with Dr. Blaine and my working at the hospital. So basically this is what I did before I went abroad to study.
Tell us finally, what did you study?
Well, on returning, as I said, I have worked. Oh, I went to Norway because I was a member of a teetotal organization called IOGT. I am one of the founder members of the International Organization of Good Templars in the Gambia. We started it together with my late friend and brother, Eliman Sar. And there was also the late Tijan Drame. We were the founder members of IOGT. I remember going to a conference in Denmark in 1970. and attending the youth camp in Denmark. And as a result of which I had contacts with good friends who were members of the organization, and I told them that I wanted to further my education. So then it was possible, and I was given a scholarship to study in Norway. Initially, I went to a folk high school. The first one was a Fana folk high school, and I did the language course, and then also the second course I did was I went to a preschool for seamen. A lot of people would ask why a preschool for seamen, because of the mere fact that before I left here, I always had at the back of my mind that I wanted to be a wireless operator. And knowing fully well what it entails in terms of going to sea and all that, I finished my first year at Fana and then went to Risrøy Folk High School, which is in the south of Norway. After some months, we had a trip, a familiarization trip at sea, and coming back, I was so seasick that I decided that this is not a career for me. So as a result, I said, well, okay, I've already started this course. I will continue until I finish and then find something else. Luckily, at that time, the University of Lillehammer has just started tourism, which was almost 1 year old. Knowing fully well that tourism has just started in the Gambia, and there was a feature, so I applied to do this course in tourism. And luckily, at that time, they had already made their intake, so I was told that I should wait until the next year. So I was lucky to be accepted, and I did that course, did tourism and travel, and the Lillehammer University. It was called Hedmark Upland District High School at that time, but now it's called Lillehammer University. So I completed my school and started work in a reputable travel agency, which was called Saga Tours. Saga was one of the biggest tour operators in Norway, and I was fortunate to be one of the first Africans to work there. And during my 3 years working with Saga, I had traveled extensively to the destinations that Saga offered their tours, because they were selling package tours to Benidorm, Lanzarote, Mallorca, Menorca, England, Yugoslavia, and most of the Mediterranean countries. And I think I had a very good background, and as a result of which I thought that after 3 years working in Norway, I should come back and serve my country. I came back home in 1978, and I was appointed tourism assistant, and worked in the Department of Tourism at that time for 14 years, and retired as a director of tourism. I thought since starting working in government, I said at 45 I will leave, because I would have gained a lot of experience having worked in Europe, and then coming back home, having built up that experience, I think I can do something else. It was at that time that I decided I'd work in the private sector. And you remember, I retired voluntarily at 45 in 1978 and joined Sounding Hotel as rooms division manager. And there I gained a lot of experience. Well, it was not new for me, because during my days in Norway, I had worked in several hotels during my vacation and part-time. I worked in Lillehammer Tourist Hotel, Atlantic Hotel in Stavanger, and had a lot of experience in hotels. So as you can see, I have a background of being worked as a tour operator, with the tour operator, and then worked in hotels, and then also worked in the Ministry of Tourism, or Department of State for Tourism, in my capacity, rising from the tourism officer to the director of tourism.